Let me ask you something that no one ever taught you in school. What if the biggest reason you're still afraid to speak English has nothing to do with English at all? What if it's not your grammar, not your vocabulary, but a voice inside your head, one that doesn't belong to you, the one that says, "Don't speak, they'll laugh. You'll mess it up again. You're not smart enough." Here's the truth. That voice is not your truth. It's your inner critic. And it's been holding your future hostage for years, in English and in life. In this video, you won't get 5 language tips. You'll get something deeper. You'll hear a story, not just to improve your listening, but to rebuild your inner voice. Because when you silence the critic inside, English stops feeling like a test and starts feeling like a life. So listen closely. This is not just English practice. This is your recovery. Before he even opened his eyes, the voice was already there. It wasn't loud. It didn't shout. It whispered. But the words hit hard. "You're going to mess this up again." That morning, he lay still for a moment, letting the words echo inside his chest like cold wind in an empty room. It wasn't just about English. It was about everything. His job interviews, his relationships, even the way he looked in the mirror. Failure. That's what the voice kept repeating. At first, he thought this was his voice, his mind, his inner truth. But something didn't feel right. That tone. It reminded him of someone, a teacher from school, an uncle, the kid who laughed at him in 8th grade when he mispronounced the word vegetables. He started to realize something painful but powerful. The critic inside wasn't born with him. It had moved in slowly over time, like a tenant that never paid rent but refused to leave. One day, while washing the dishes, that voice came again. "You'll never speak fluently." But this time, something inside him shifted. He paused, water running, soap on his hands, and then gently, almost like an act of rebellion, he said out loud, "I'm learning." Just 2 words. But in that moment, it wasn't about English. It was about claiming something, taking 1 inch of his inner world back. After that day, he started to pay attention. Each time the inner critic spoke, he asked himself a question. Whose voice is this, really? Sometimes it sounded like an old boss, sometimes like his disappointed father. But the more he questioned, the less power it had. He even started keeping a small notebook, writing down the phrases his critic said, and beside them, who it sounded like. Teacher, parent, himself at 14. The truth is, naming the voice made it shrink. One evening he was watching an English video. The speaker made a mistake, laughed, and kept going. No shame, no panic. And in that moment, he felt something strange, permission. So the next time he messed up a sentence, he didn't punish himself. He smiled, exhaled, and said one phrase softly, "That's okay. I'm growing." That single sentence felt more healing than any grammar lesson he ever studied. Something beautiful began to happen. Not overnight, but slowly. Every time he spoke English, even if it was wrong, he whispered a phrase of kindness to himself. It became a ritual, like a secret handshake with his future self. He would say, "You tried. That's enough." And somehow those tiny phrases started rewriting the story inside his mind. His fluency didn't come from speaking perfectly. It came from learning to be gentle with himself after every imperfection. That was the real turning point. He wasn't trying to be fluent anymore. He was trying to be free from the prison of his own expectations. And strangely, once he gave up the need to be perfect, his English started flowing more naturally. No, the critic didn't disappear. Not completely. But now it had a counter voice, a stronger one, a kinder one. And every time he heard the old message, "You're not good enough," he would answer back in English, "But I'm getting better." And that one sentence was enough to open a new door, one he had been afraid to touch for years. If you want to stay insecure forever, then here's a perfect method. Take every negative thought in your head and treat it like sacred truth. Don't question it. Don't doubt it. Just let it run wild. Let it say you're not ready, that your English is embarrassing, that other people are better, and then obey it. Let it sit on the throne of your mind like a king, even though it was never elected. Want to stay silent in English forever? Here's a brilliant trick. Wait until you're perfect. Wait until you feel confident. Wait until you know every rule. Spoiler alert, that day never comes. So you'll wait forever. And the critic inside, it loves that. Because every time you hesitate, it grows stronger. Every time you say, "I'll speak later," it wins, quietly smiling from the shadows. If you want to destroy your self-worth quickly, here's a powerful method. Compare yourself to someone who's been speaking English for 15 years. Watch their TED Talk, their fluent speech, their perfect pronunciation. Then look in the mirror and say, "I'm terrible." It works like poison, slow, silent, and devastating. But if you want to weaken that poison, compare yourself to just one person. Yesterday, you. Want to keep living in emotional paralysis? Replay your failures like a movie on repeat. Every mistake, every awkward moment, every forgotten word. Keep watching them in your head. Feel the shame. Let it grow roots. This is the critic's favorite entertainment, your internal Netflix of past pain. Want to cancel the subscription? Replace just one of those scenes with a new attempt, no matter how small. Here's another guaranteed way to stay stuck. Speak only when it feels safe. Never take a risk. Never use that new phrase. Never say the sentence that might sound wrong. Because if you do, someone might look at you funny, right? But here's the twist. Every safe moment is a missed opportunity, and every risk is a step toward the future version of you. The one who doesn't freeze anymore. You want to feed your inner critic? Do this. Surround yourself with people who never try anything, who laugh at effort, who say things like, "Why are you learning English? What's the point?" Keep those voices close. They'll do the critic's job for you. But if you want to starve that inner critic, spend 5 minutes today with someone, even a voice on YouTube, who believes in growth. If you want to keep failing the same way, here's a subtle move. Never write down what actually helps you. Just scroll, watch videos, feel inspired, then forget it all by morning. But if you want to break the pattern, pause right now and write down one sentence you heard in this video. One phrase, one insight, one truth, because knowledge not written is knowledge soon forgotten. And finally, if you want to stay exactly where you are, do nothing. Let this video be entertainment. Let it end like all the others. Let your critic smile and say, "See, you didn't change." Or, "Do one thing differently today. Speak one imperfect sentence. Whisper it, record it, write it. But do it. And in that tiny act, something bigger will begin to shift." She always looked down when she spoke, not because she didn't know what to say, but because she didn't believe she deserved to say it. Her name was Amina. She had studied English for 6 years, memorized hundreds of words, watched thousands of videos. But still, every time someone asked her a question, her mouth froze, her mind went blank, and inside, that voice whispered again, "Don't embarrass yourself." It wasn't her grammar, it wasn't her accent. It was shame, quiet but heavy, like a wet blanket she couldn't remove. And the worst part, no one saw it. People thought she was shy, reserved, too humble, but inside she felt like a fraud, like someone playing the role of a confident person, always afraid someone would discover how broken she actually felt. Then one night, everything changed. It wasn't a class or a motivational speech. It was just a simple story. She was reading a graded English reader, trying to stay consistent. The character in the story was a young man who had failed many times. And in one line he said, "I'm scared, but I'll try." That sentence hit her like lightning. Not because it was advanced English, but because it sounded like her heart speaking. She paused. "Read the sentence again. I'm scared, but I'll try." Her eyes welled up. For the first time, she didn't feel weak for being afraid. She felt human. And for the first time in years, she read a line in English, not with pressure, but with emotion. She whispered it aloud, then louder, then again, and it didn't feel like practice. It felt like healing. The next day, something happened. Her friend asked her a question in English, and even though her hands were shaking, she answered. Just one sentence. Her voice cracked a little. Her rhythm wasn't perfect, but she didn't run. She didn't hide. And when she finished, her friend smiled and said, "Your English is getting better." That small moment was bigger than any test she ever passed. She went home and did something brave. She recorded a 10-second voice note. "Hi, my name is Amina. I'm scared, but I'm trying." She posted it anonymously in an English group. No photo, no name, just her voice. To her surprise, people commented with kindness. One person even wrote, "Me too." And that's when she realized she was never alone in this fear. Over time, she started shadowing emotional English dialogues. Not grammar-heavy lectures, not vocabulary drills, but real stories with fear, hope, and courage in them. She chose 30-second scenes that felt honest. She mimicked the pauses, the emotion, even the little mistakes. And slowly, her voice started changing. Not just the sound, the energy behind it. Amina's transformation wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was deep. She didn't kill the fear, she just stopped obeying it, and that she realized was enough. She wasn't waiting to be fearless anymore. She was becoming someone who speaks anyway, and every story she read after that wasn't just English practice. It was another piece of her voice coming home. Let's get something straight. Your inner critic isn't evil. It's not a villain hiding in your mind. In fact, it thinks it's helping you. Psychologists call it a survival response. When your brain senses danger, like embarrassment, failure, or judgment, it reacts fast. Not to destroy you, but to protect you. It's trying to keep you safe, even if that means keeping you small. That's why the critic feels so powerful. Because it has biology on its side. Imagine this, thousands of years ago, saying the wrong thing could get you rejected, even exiled. So your brain evolved to panic when you feel socially exposed. Now fast forward to today. You say one wrong English sentence and boom, the same alarm goes off. Danger, they might laugh. But here's the problem. The brain doesn't know the difference between danger and discomfort. It treats a simple conversation like a lion attack. That's why perfectionism feels safe. If you're perfect, you can't be judged, right? But that perfection, it's a trap. It promises protection, but delivers paralysis. You stay silent, you hesitate, and suddenly you're no longer learning, you're hiding. There's a powerful way to interrupt this cycle. Mispronounce a word on purpose. Yes, on purpose. Say something wrong, then smile. Tell your brain, "See, we're not dead, we're okay." This simple act teaches your nervous system that mistakes aren't fatal, that freedom lives where fear used to be. This is how rewiring starts, not with thinking, but with brave action. Let's talk about emotional memory. Every time you failed in the past, forgot a word, got laughed at, felt small, your brain made a record, and now, before every new attempt, it plays those memories like a warning. But you don't have to delete the past. You just need to overwrite it. Speak one new sentence today. Make it honest, make it soft. Let it be your new emotional file. There's also something called reparenting. It means becoming the voice you needed when you were younger, not harsh, not cold, but supportive. The next time your critic screams, try whispering instead. "I'm here, you're safe, let's try again." Say it in English, say it gently, and notice how your nervous system begins to breathe. Here's a practical trick. Create a list of gentle responses in English. Phrases like, "I'm allowed to grow," "mistakes are part of my path," or "one sentence is better than silence." Read them aloud every time you feel blocked. Train your brain to recognize new patterns, ones built on safety, not shame. Because once you stop fighting your critic and start understanding it, something powerful happens. The voice doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip. You don't need to silence it with force. You just need to surround it with care. And that care, surprisingly, opens a door to something much deeper. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. There's a strange thing that happens when you start to grow. The critic inside you doesn't go quiet, it gets louder. Not because you're failing, but because you're getting closer to who you were meant to be. That's the paradox. The more potential you unlock, the more resistance you feel. Not from the world, from yourself, from that voice that says, "Careful, don't change too much." Your critic isn't cruel, it's scared. Growth means stepping into unknown territory, and the unknown feels like death to your comfort. So instead of celebrating your progress, your inner voice whispers, "You're not ready. People will see through you. Stay small, stay familiar." But here's the truth. When fear gets loud, it means you're standing at the door of something powerful. Beneath every self-judgment, there's grief, a quiet sadness about the time you lost, the chances you didn't take, the parts of you that were silenced too early. And when you try to rise, that grief wakes up, disguised as criticism. But if you pause, you'll notice it's not hatred, it's hurt. The hurt of a younger version of you, still waiting to be seen, still wondering, am I enough? Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak kindly to the child you used to be. In English, just one line, "You did your best," or "You were never weak, just scared." These aren't just sentences, they're healing, they're reprogramming, they're permission slips to stop the war inside and finally begin again, from a place of understanding. Fluency, in the deepest sense, doesn't start with perfect English. It starts with self-acceptance. You cannot speak freely if you're at war with your own voice. But the moment you say, "I accept myself, even when I'm unsure," something unblocks. Your sentences flow easier, your breathing deepens, you begin to feel safe in your own sound, and once you stop attacking yourself, your real voice returns. Not the one you forced, the one you forgot, the natural one, the honest one. The voice that doesn't need to prove anything, it just speaks. Imagine saying this in English, "This is me, imperfect, but real." That's the sound of someone who's no longer hiding behind fear. You can try it now. Look in the mirror. Speak one sentence you've been afraid to say. Not a fancy sentence, a true one. "I want to grow. I'm afraid of wasting my life. I deserve to speak." When your critic hears that, it won't know what to do, because it feeds on shame. But truth confuses it. Truth disarms it. So next time your inner critic appears, don't push it away. Ask it this: "What are you so afraid I'll become?" And when the answer comes, brave, visible, fluent, free, you'll know you're heading in the right direction. And that leads us into something even deeper. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Your brain isn't fixed. It's not a machine. It's not a hard drive. It's more like soft clay, constantly reshaped by experience, repetition, and emotion. Neuroscientists call it neuroplasticity. But in simple terms, it means every time you speak kindly to yourself, your brain changes, literally, and that's the real secret to fluency. There's a tiny part of your brain called the amygdala. It's the alarm system, the one that screams danger when you feel nervous or judged. When your inner critic gets loud, this is the part of your brain that shuts everything else down, especially your ability to speak. That's why when you're scared, you forget even simple English. It's not your memory, it's your nervous system. But here's the good news. Breath calms the amygdala. Just one deep inhale and a slow exhale tells your body, "We're safe now." Try this before you speak. Pause. Put your hand on your chest. Breathe in for 4 seconds, out for 6. Say a soft English sentence like, "I'm learning." It may feel small, but your brain notices, and it begins to unfreeze. Repetition matters too. Not just any repetition, but kind repetition. If you repeat, "I'm stupid" every day, your brain builds that pathway. But if you say, "I'm improving 10 times a day," your brain starts building that path instead. Over time, those gentle words become your default, not because of magic, but because of neural repetition. There's something else, the story immersion effect. When you read or listen to stories where characters grow, especially in English, your brain mirrors them. It's called neural coupling. You feel what the character feels, and slowly you start believing if they can grow, maybe I can too. That's why English stories aren't just reading practice, they're rewiring tools. One small success creates a feedback loop. Imagine this, you say one new English sentence, you survive, no one laughs. Your brain records it. Success. Next time, it's easier. You try again. That's how confidence is built, not from big victories, but from stacking micro wins. And each win is like a brick in the new neural house you're building inside. So here's a practical tool. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what tiny moment made me proud today? Maybe you said, thank you, in English. Maybe you understood one sentence without translating. Write it down, celebrate it. Let your brain feel the win. This is how rewiring works, not through pressure, but through awareness. Because at the end of the day, healing your inner critic isn't just emotional work, it's neurological. And the most beautiful part? You don't need a fancy textbook. You just need consistency, kind repetition, brave moments, and the willingness to show up, even when the critic is still whispering, especially then. Because that's when your brain begins to shift into something extraordinary. Something subtle begins to shift when your inner critic finally gets quiet. At first, it's hard to notice, but then your shoulders start to lift, your jaw relaxes. Your voice no longer trembles when you say even the simplest sentence. You're not fluent yet, but you're no longer fighting yourself. And in that space, fluency finds a place to grow. Your sentences aren't perfect, but they feel alive, because shame isn't strangling them anymore. You answer without overthinking. You don't pause to edit every word in your head. You just speak, and it feels honest, natural. Like the English was already inside you, it just needed permission to come out. And now it has that permission, and people notice, not because your grammar is flawless, but because your energy changed. You make eye contact, you smile when you speak, you're not hiding anymore. And something unexpected happens. People lean in, they listen, because confidence doesn't need complexity, it just needs presence. And when you show up as yourself, people feel it. That's the recalibration moment. When you realize that English fluency isn't about being correct, it's about connection. You stop trying to sound like a textbook. You start trying to sound like a person, a real one, who breathes, who makes mistakes, who laughs in the middle of a sentence because the words came out weird, but kept going anyway. Here's a simple practice. The next time you speak English, lift your chin, just a little. Speak with an open chest, not a collapsed one. Posture changes your breathing. Breathing changes your tone. Tone changes your confidence. These little physical shifts tell your brain, we're not hiding, we're here now. It's a body language rebellion. Try this exercise today. Answer one question out loud without self-correcting. For example, what did you do yesterday? Say it once. Don't stop, don't fix. Just let it flow, like water from a tap. This trains you to trust the words that are already inside you, instead of doubting everyone. And now that you're speaking more freely, something else begins to bloom. Credibility, not with others, with yourself. You begin to believe your own voice. You stop thinking, one day I'll be fluent. You start thinking, I'm already becoming fluent. That shift isn't just emotional, it's identity-based, and it's what changes everything. Because now, English doesn't feel like a subject anymore. It feels like part of your life, like music in the background of your thoughts, like a new room in your home. And every time you step into it, even with broken phrases, it feels more like yours. And what happens next is more powerful than any language lesson could ever teach. Why was I so harsh with myself? He sat there, phone in hand, another English video playing, and the thought came quietly, almost like a sigh. Not angry, not dramatic, just tired. Tired of the pressure, the self-judgment, the fear of not being enough. He used to believe that being hard on himself would make him grow, but now he knew better. Criticism didn't build him, it broke him. In that silence, he whispered a sentence he had never said in English before. Gentleness is strength. At first it felt strange, soft, unusual, but something inside responded to it, like his nervous system exhaled, like his younger self, the one who had been judged too often, finally heard the words he'd needed all along. Not advice, not rules, just kindness. What do I need now? He asked himself. Not what grammar to study, not what app to download, but what his inner world truly needed. And the answer came in a simple desire, a safe voice inside his own mind, a voice that didn't shout, didn't rush, didn't punish. So he made a daily ritual, just one kind sentence in English every morning. Today, I speak with care. Today, I'm allowed to try. Who am I becoming? He wondered. Not the person who speaks perfectly, but the one who speaks truthfully, who doesn't shrink under pressure, who doesn't hide behind silence, someone whose words, even if broken, carry authenticity, someone who says, I'm learning, and actually believes that's enough, someone who sees English as a mirror of personal growth. Then came the most sacred question, what happens next? Not just in language, in life. He closed his eyes, took a breath, and answered himself slowly, in English, my voice is my home. No longer a battlefield, no longer a war zone of doubt and fear, but a place to live, to express, to belong. And in that moment, the learning became more than academic. It became spiritual. He began recording 20-second reflections, not for TikTok, not for teachers, just for himself. A soft voice message before bed, a spoken journal entry, a sentence that said, I'm here, I'm growing, I'm proud. And night after night, his voice grew warmer, softer, stronger. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that made all the difference, because in the end, fluency was never the goal. Wholeness was. English was just the door. What he really wanted was to feel free again, to express without shame, to dream without limits. And now he was. So now the question is no longer, how can I fix my English? The real question is, how can I stop attacking myself every time I try? Because maybe, just maybe, fluency isn't something you achieve. Maybe it's something you allow. What if your voice isn't broken? What if it's just been buried under years of criticism, fear, and silence? And what if English is the tool to set it free? Now it's your turn. Pause, breathe, reflect. What part of the story felt like it was about you? What sentence do you want to say? Not perfectly, but honestly, right now. What kind of relationship are you ready to build? Not just with English, but with yourself. Let English be more than a language. Let it be your mirror, your practice, your healing space. If this story moved something inside you, if it felt like more than just a lesson, then you already know what to do next. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, share in the comments. What did your inner critic used to say? And what do you say back now? Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that could change your inner world through English. Because we're not just here to study English. We're here to recover our voice, one sentence at a time.